Welcome to Food Literacy at the Library, connecting across the curriculum and school community. Connecting across the curriculum and school community through food. Our moderator today is, today's panel is Philip Lee, co-founder and publisher of Readers to Eaters. On behalf of CSLA, I want to thank all of you for being here for this panel, and I'll pass it over to Philip to moderate this great session.
Great. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Trevor. So quick introduction. Like Trevor says, we are, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us on a Friday afternoon. Welcome all to our program, Food Literacy at the Library. We're gonna have a great discussion today with people sharing their experiences as well as resources on connecting curriculum as well as the school community through food. And I think I just wanna, as people are still coming in, just wanna kind of repeat again, ask everybody to mute your device, and turn your camera off, and then you can type in your questions with at the Q&A, and Trevor, our room host, would help us monitor the questions, and we'll have the Q&A after each of the presenters talk. Excuse me. So now I'd like to quickly introduce myself. Excuse me. So my name is Philip Lee. So I'm the co-founder of Readers to Eaters. We're a publishing company based in San Francisco. And our focus is to publish stories about food. And with that, I just want to ask for you to stop for a moment to think about your favorite food. If you can think of something that you really enjoy. Give it a second. 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'll share my own. My favorite food is a Chinese pork bun called char siu bao, and it's a char siu bao because it's sweet, it's a little doughy, and it's like it's delicious. But you know what? My favorite food is not because it tastes good, because it's my favorite food because that's what my parents always bought me when I did well in school and as a treat. And forever, it stayed with me. It's my favorite food because it's always going to be a treat. And that's what food means to me. And I think that's what oftentimes food means to a lot of people. So we talk about food, and people connect with food in many different ways. Sometimes it's about health and nutrition. So obviously that, and it fills our stomach. But we also like to talk about food as cultural traditions, as rich cultural meanings. And so, and food can also be about history, immigration, social justice, and in the classroom, food can also means, science, STEM education, art, and language arts. Every kid, every person has a story about food. So that's why we want to use food as a universal experience to connect through our classrooms. So today we have, again, a wonderful panel of people, fabulous people, talking about their experience with food and how they use food to connect with kids. So I'd like to introduce our panel. First one is Cassandra Sargent, and she is a librarian at the Orange County Public Libraries. She is based out of the Garden Grove main branch. And Krista Williams manages the California Food for California Kids program at the Center for Eco-Literacy based in Berkeley. And Craig Seashells is the teacher librarian at Dearborn Park International Elementary School in Seattle. He is the past president of the Washington Library Association and past president of the Washington Library Media Association. So Junjo Lee is the co-founder of Readers to Eaters. She is also my wife. So we founded Readers to Eaters together. She is also the co-author of the book Chef Roy Choi and the Street Food Remix, illustrated by Man One, and the book was a 2018 Cybert Award honoree. And Man One, that illustrated Chef Roy Choi, is a renowned graffiti artist based in LA. And many of you in Southern California, especially, probably recognize some of his murals that goes all throughout Southern California. So I want to welcome everybody. And to start, maybe Cassandra can start sharing her work. Cassandra?
All right, thank you. So I'm Cassandra, like he said, I'm with OC Public Libraries. And I'm going to share my screen with you because I know how much we all love photos. So I put together a little slideshow to show you. Let's see if it works. All right. So we're based in Southern California, and about, oh, let me see how I'm going to move my slides. There we go. So a couple years ago, the OC Read program, it's our adult literacy program, got additional funds to start family literacy programming. And so our programs coordinator stumbled along the trolley cart project and found it so fascinating that we ended up purchasing 3 of them. And we established a committee to start doing literacy programs throughout the county. So we're using librarians, we're partnering with organizations, we're working with other chefs to provide programs about food. Like Philip said, we're teaching them about heritage, we're teaching kids about math and science and building some of their English language arts and just teaching parents how to talk to kids about food, which I think can be really difficult for them, or like they just don't really know how to approach it or how to engage with the student, like with their kids or their students. So all of us also got food handler certifications for anyone that was doing programs, just so we had like a basic skill set of how to handle food, how to sanitize and properly, wash your hands and things like that. So we started off pretty easily with like pancakes and hikes and pajamas and story times, making yogurt parfaits. So our staff were very enthusiastic and excited to do programs. And then we started in last cookie decorating. I have a little bit of a background in baking, so I was able to show kids kind of how the tips and tricks of cookie decorating. And then some of our other programming ideas were blind date with your food, a Galentine's truffle making, I love you to pizza story times. We had a chef to come do Irish food cooking and talk about that heritage and culture of his. A leprechaun lunch, we've done butter making, kids can cook, we've done plant-based meals, food art, we've started making them into competition. So there's tons of ideas you can do with food, because let's be honest, everybody loves a program that involves eating and you get like the most turnout from that. So everything we did was really, really popular. And then when COVID hit, we started pivoting to virtual programming, which meant doing like cooking demos and trying to engage students and adults through like Instagram and social media posts. So the food art one in that first picture is one of my favorites. It is a owl, if you haven't guessed, with apples and bananas and oranges and peanut butter that's holding it all together. So this is some of the programs we did. And most recently, I've pivoted to take and make. And our program is called Taste Buds. It's based off the Charlie Cart Project curriculum, which centers around like Common Core standards for the students. And it comes with a packet of spice, activities, discussion questions, and a recipe for parents to go home and do with their kids. And then each month we also post a video so that the parents can kind of see how to make the recipe, and it gives them ideas for how they can, the activities that their children can do. Because it doesn't matter the age of the child, there's always something that they can do in the kitchen together. So another example is the one I just did this month for applesauce. And as you can see, we make sure that they get tips of talking to the kids about what they see in the apple and when it's cut and how the flesh feels, what the stem looks like. They get to learn how they grow. They can draw pictures of them and name different parts of the apple. And that's just a snip of some of the discussion questions that we have the parents do with the kids as they're making that dish. And then in the future, my goal is to start doing some live cooking demos, ranging from adults to children. but I would also love to partner with a couple school libraries and figure out some curriculum that we could do together, and I could pop into classrooms and give little lessons. So we could prearrange to drop off ingredients and create a curriculum based around like math, English, or science. Some of the things we could do is also use one of the Readers to Eaters books and base a lesson off of that, because there's some really great content in those. The California put out something called Nourishing Students Curriculum, which is really great for younger kids to talk about. There was tomatoes and cherries and apples, and they get to learn about Southern California fruits and vegetables. And then they also get to do some projects with that. And we can also base lessons off the Charlie Cart curriculum, because like I said, it's got the Common Core is already written and the standards already written into it. So it should cover like all the students in classrooms up to grade 5. So
so we'll wrap up a little bit and then
Okay.
we'll share your favorite food if you have a chance.
Yeah. If anyone wants any questions or ideas, feel free to contact me. My information's right here. You can also see some of the stuff we've done on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube at OC Public Libraries. I'd like to say my favorite food is probably cookies. As a kid, I grew up in Southern California. Anytime it rained, I knew I could come home to either like cookies or cake in the oven. But it was one of the first things that I took over from my mom of making. It was cookies, but they are so versatile. You can have chewy ones, they're like big poofy ones, and there's so many different flavors and textures and things to play around with that, I don't know, I love the creativity in a cookie.
Great, thanks, Cassandra.
Yeah.
So now I'd like to introduce Krista again from the Center of Eco-Literacy, and maybe you can share your work.
Definitely. Hello, everyone. And I'm going to work on pulling up my slides as well. One moment. All right. You see that okay? Great. So hello, everyone. My name is Krista Williams, and I work with the Center for Eco-Literacy, and we're a nonprofit that's based in Berkeley. And I work on our California Food for California Kids initiative, which works statewide to increase schools' capacity and commitment to serve fresh and local foods. And we also provide educational materials to support food literacy in all the different parts of the school. And we offer trainings and networking events and free resources for school nutrition leaders and educators that are in service of these goals. And one of the ways that we have partnered with public libraries is through providing food literacy resources and activities for them to engage youth and families as part of their summer meal campaigns. And pictured here is one of our Nourishing Student activities that I'll talk a little bit more about in just a minute. And during our time today, I'd love to share some of the resources from our organization that can be used to provide really colorful food literacy learning opportunities for students and families of all ages. And they can be used in libraries and classrooms and even in cafeterias. And many of these resources work really well under all circumstances, whether you're doing distance learning or whether you do have students on campus, and can really be adapted to whatever constraints you and your teams are working under. They're just really very flexible. So we have a number of food-focused educational lessons and activities. And this first one, Nourishing Students, that's pictured here, is great for K through 5. It's an enrichment handbook, which will help children to explore their world through food. And it's perfect for informal settings such as the library or after school. And all the resources that I'm going to mention are available for free on our website, which we'll share later too. So Nourishing Students has 5 enrichment activities that are outlined, and they're each complemented by really colorful and engaging posters, which you can see here. And each lesson comes with talking points on the featured crops and activities, ways you can use taste tests with them, and a list of books that you can find on each produce item, which is really perfect for libraries. And if you're not in the market for new books right now, these types of lessons and activities can totally be paired with the books that you already have on hand. And here's an image from one of our trainings, which used the radish lesson. And first we use the activity to look at the inside of a radish underneath a magnifier. And you can do this to identify how radishes derive and store water. And you can even use those really inexpensive paper magnifiers, or you could just look at it with your naked eye. And it's really interesting when you pause to notice what is going on. And it's really fun to watch children and families make the connections to the different parts of the radishes. And then after we've spent some time looking at the actual radish, we use the radish to draw another radish and use the roots and the leaves to color it in. And I just love how beautiful those colors look, and knowing that they're all came from the radish itself. And everybody we do this activity is so excited to learn that you can actually draw with your fruits and vegetables. It takes on a whole nother level of playing with your food. And this can be a really nice linkage to science or biochemistry or history if you want to talk about natural dyes and where we used to get all our colors from. So lots of things you can do with this. And then another one of our resources that I want to share is Abundant California. And this one is geared more towards 3rd through 5th grade. And these lessons are a bit more structured and a bit more in depth. And they're great for facilitating activities for youth to explore different subjects through the lens of California crops. And for each produce item, we also include a really fun fact sheet, like the one that's pictured here, about California oranges. And this can be a great standalone resource if you don't have time to do a whole lesson. And here's a quick overview of all the different crops that are a part of that suite of lessons. And then the last resource that I want to share with you are these coloring sheets, which are great for all ages, children and adults alike. And the coloring book includes 7 different fruits and vegetables, each with a few fun nutritional facts at the bottom. And they can all be downloaded for free on our website. And we've heard from a lot of food service directors that they've been including these in their weekly meal kits, that they're sending them home with kids, and they've just gotten really great responses from them. And right now these are available in English on our website, but pretty soon we'll also have them in Spanish, along with the nourishing curriculum. So keep your eyes out for that. So just to wrap up, in addition to providing all of these free resources for you to use, we're really passionate about building a school-wide network for education, for sustainability, and food literacy, while supporting the development of lifelong healthy learners. And we really want to see libraries and cafeterias and school gardens and classrooms all connected. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we work with 89 different school districts across the state through our California Food for California Kids network, and we're growing even more. And so we would love to help you connect with others at your school who are also passionate about food literacy, or help you get a program started. So thank you.
Thanks, Trista. So do you have a favorite food you'd like to share?
I do. My favorite food is cinnamon pull-apart bread, which is something my family makes at Christmas every year. And it was something my dad made with his mom growing up, and now he makes it with us, and then we make it with our kids. So it's a really fun tradition.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So now we get to hear the experience from the school library, from Greg Seychelles.
Well, thank you. I am a school librarian. I feel like I've come with a basket of delights. I'm already filling it. As a school librarian, let me share a few images and talk about it in a few ways. I will return to this idea, what's cooking in the library. The ability to curate and share resources is a thrill. and the recent titles, that are coming in front of us that reflect the diversity of our students in the collection, books like Fry Bread and Thank You, Omu, that really reflect so much more of our students' culture. It's a joy to share. I'll come back to that a little bit, but I am very keen on community. And so back in the summer of 2014, I think Philip even came and visited. I partnered with our Somali instructional assistant who was doing a summer literacy camp. And I worked with him and the kids, and we added the library component to it. You'll see that we not only planted in a little community garden where Mr. Mohammed had tremendous experience gardening and opened up whole parts of his life to the students who normally he helps in the classroom. We were also able to then double back and come into the library and using library resources to read at the kids level. It was a wonderful collaboration. Again, that was based on the people that we serve. I often say that I'm a people librarian, even more than the books that I use. It's what are the human resources? Another thing that's very important to me in my work in an elementary school library is seeing kids as producers. And one of the surefire activities for learning to lay out a book, be it as a single slide or a PowerPoint or using a tool like Book Creator, is ask kids to share how to make some of their favorite food. And in that, you can engage their art making. These are both books that were made with Book Creator. I'll pop into the web the link that you can view, because in the end, an online book creation tool like Book Creator gives the kids the ability to share their books with people in their family as well as with the community. So I find that prompts based on cooking and food is something that everybody can bring a piece of home into school, and it's a delight. My own prompt for this was making grits, and coming from the Midwest and right on the Mason-Dixon line in Cincinnati, sharing the importance of grits in American culture was a delight, as well as sharing grits as cooked by friends in Kenya, because ugali is a major staple of our East African populations. But bookmaking for me is a key in the library, because I'm as interested in the students as producers as consumers of books. Now, another opportunity that COVID presented us with, the closure of school, and Seattle is still closed as a district, but we're still doing food distribution. And in the beginning of the spring and through the summer, as people were coming to food distribution sites, Seattle as a district curated a very strong offering of Seattle Super Readers books for all ages, so that librarians were there with nutrition services, feeding their minds as well as filling gaps in food scarcity. And that was an initiative by our superintendent, Denise Juneau, that I applauded and was delighted. It was a chance to see kids, to bring them in, and to send away with books that still trickle through.
That's great, Craig. In fact, I added your link to our chat about what's cooking, as well as there's been link from Cassandra from the library, from the OC library, as well as eco literacy links. And so feel free to refer to the chat to see some of the links.
Oh, thanks, Philip, for doing that.
Thanks, Craig.
Go along. You bet.
Yeah. And do you like to share your favorite food? Well,
I would share my favorite food, as well as my favorite piece of art in my library. I have to take a moment to say that when Man Wan and Junjo came to our school to talk about Chef Roy Choi, Man Wan drew a dragon, a school mascot, onto onto our mirror, and now families are able to see themselves reflected in the collection. Now, I'm going to say that uncooked cookie dough is absolutely my honest soft spot. And here I am. I'm a winter sport enthusiast, and so uncooked cookie dough is the ideal trail food for skiing. And so the other reason that I love uncooked chocolate chip cookie dough is because it was something I did in my home with my family. Like Cassandra said, learning to cook with family keeps that food in a special place. So thanks.
That's great. I love that. Thank you, Craig. So now I get to refer to my wife, Junjo Lee, to talk about her book.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. And thank you for having me and all of us here. I am so, I grew up as an only child, and I was very lonely. I grew up between Korea, Texas, and California. And as an only child, when I was young, there was no cell phone, there was no social media. In Korea, we only had 3 channels and only 1 channel in English. And so books were my best friends. And so I love children's books so much. I married a children's book publisher. But the reason why I wrote Chef Roy Choi and the Street Food Remix with my co-author Jackie Martin is because I grew up without having many mirrors. And so I just want to refer to this article that Nick Glass gave me. You might know Nick Glass from Talking Books, but written by Professor Bishop, who talks about the fact that books are not only wonderful, magnificent mirrors and sliding doors, windows and sliding doors. Books are also mirrors. They reflect who we are. And so for me, growing up, I started kindergarten in Palo Alto, Hoover Elementary School on Middlefield Road, and kids would make fun of my food. I would eat seaweed, and they would say, "Gross! What is that? Why are you eating black paper?" And then when kids would come over and they would smell my refrigerator, they would smell kimchi. And they would go, "Gross, yuck." I grew up ashamed of my identity. I grew up ashamed of my Korean American roots. And so I wanted to write a book that was a mirror of my experiences, but a mirror for your experiences and kids' experiences growing up. And who better to write a book about than our very own Chef Roy Choi from LA, who started the whole food truck phenomena. In fact, he was the first business on Twitter, if you can believe that, in 2009. And he launched food trucks, street food in America that was ethnic and delicious, ethnic, cultural and delicious. And one of my favorite foods growing up was ramen, because as I mentioned, I'm an only child. I was alone in the house all day, and ramen was the very first food that I could make. And so when I go on school visits, I bring a lot of props with me, like ramen. And I can tell kids the history of ramen in Korea, that our first ramen company started in 1963, right after the Korean War. And, we were hungry. We didn't have enough rice to feed, and we were receiving food aid from the States. And so ramen started, and how delicious is that? I can also share with kids concepts, Korean culinary concepts like sonmat. So in our book, we talk about sonmat. Son means hands and mat means flavor. Sonmat is the flavor in our fingertips. It's the love and cooking talent that Korean grandmothers and mothers mix into their handmade foods. And then you can talk about all the handmade foods that kids make, and often baking is a huge one. I can also show kids, so this is my author visit jacket. I had never got to wear it because of COVID, but I had just purchased it to do a lot of author visits. But you can talk about the table setting in a Korean table, and really, create sliding doors and windows for kids. So this is the Korean table setting. And in Korean culinary concepts, something that we think is really important is to have all 5 flavors, which I talk about in the book, but also all 5 colors. So eating the rainbow has always been part of Korean culinary tradition. And so, you know, with very young kids, you can even do that. With slightly older kids, you can even do tastings. So actually, I show kids, this is the chocolate I grew up with in Korea, Ghana. And we've done chocolate tastings where they taste Ghana chocolate from Korea. And then we taste this familiar favorite, which is Hershey's. And kids say, oh, wow, it tastes like milk chocolate. And then I can also, it's amazing. I've shared 100% pure chocolate with kids, but this is a 70%. And look how much information food has. Food is full of data about where the chocolate comes from. And the goal of all this is so kids can have language to talk about the foods that they eat. For me, I don't believe in binary good or bad foods, but I do believe that we should know what we're eating and tasting and be able to share it. And so there's a lot of fun things you can do.
You're getting good use out of that jacket.
I know.
Right?
Look how funny these fruits look. This is a pocket fruit. It's a sweet lime. And then look at this. But just so many fun things kids can do.
Maybe you can also share your favorite food, and then we'll, wrap up a little.
Yeah. Can I just share one last thing? This was my very last school visit where I did a whole chocolate tasting and I did the kimchi. And this is a note that a little girl slipped into my coat. And she said, "Dear Miss June, you is the best teacher. Can you always come here? You are so fun. The food is so good, but can you not bring kimchi because it is hot and nasty? But the candy was good. I love you so much." And really, this is why I do this. And my favorite food, I've already shared you, is ramen with kimchi and seaweed. These are my comfort foods. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, June. And so now I'd like to have Manwan share his experience. Hey, Manwan.
Hey, on there? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey.
All right. Wow, this is great. I wish I had a jacket like June. That'd be awesome right now. But anyways, so I just wanted to, talk a little bit about my experience, which is a little bit different than everyone else's, because I'm an artist, and I do murals, and I paint large canvases and do exhibitions and things like that. But also I do a lot of community murals and community workshops. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that. And I don't have a really beautiful slideshow here like everyone else. I just have photos. So I'm just gonna grab and show you a few things of what I've been able to do over the years. So for example, I get a wall like this. This one is right around the corner from MacArthur Park in outside of downtown LA, and I get to, do murals on buildings that look like that. And especially in communities, I'm able to invite the kids and have them help paint the murals. And it's, this area is mostly Central American kids. But I work with kids from all walks of life. Here we're using trash bags as aprons. It's a little bit cheaper, but the kids get really into it. This particular mural was talking about safety in the streets and being aware of the surroundings. And so we painted this mural that this is the final image of it. Yeah, this is the final image that we were creating there. And so the mural is called Cuidado niños jugando, which means, be aware, kids at play. And there you see I have a kid playing with like a bus and holding an apple, and another little girl holding an elote or a corn, which is highly typical scene you'd see on the street here. The elote man comes around the street, and everyone knows the sound of the elote horn. They come out and get corn. So integrating food into this particular mural was really an interesting thing that all the kids immediately understood. So that was kind of fun. Also, that leads me to this other location. This is in Ontario, California, where I actually live now. I just moved here, first time moving out of Los Angeles. And this is a community garden, and this is what it looked like when I showed up. Really great urban farm, and the local community gets to get a little plot. They pay like $30 a year, and they get to grow all their own food and vegetables and plants, and it's really a great community farm. The mothers do what do they call it, Zumba and stuff like that in the middle of the farm. It's just really a great community space. But this wall was always getting tagged, and this wall was always getting look at it. The wall looks ugly, right? So I was working with I got a call from a professor from Pomona Pitzer, Susan, and she asked me if I'd be willing to do a mural with the community. So I said, of course. So I went to that urban farm and checked it out, and the first few days I just spent photographing some of the people that I was meeting. There was kids there. There was obviously farmers and community members. And I was just seeing what they were doing. And what I noticed is everyone was working with their hands. They were, watering the plants. They were digging the dirt. They were, pulling the weeds, but everyone was using their hands. So I took pictures of all these people's hands. And then I, went back to the studio and used the images to create the drawings that were going to be used in the mural. And so these are some of the drawings you see here, just different poses and stuff like that. And then the actual mural is the entire length of the wall, which is about 100 feet long. And this is the final image of them. Well, it's really difficult to take a picture of the whole wall, but here's a section of it. And you can see now how the farm and the garden has transformed just by the color and the imagery, right? Each of these bricks, sections of wall is a different letter. And so the mural was titled Manos a la Obra, which in Spanish means kind of like all hands on deck or get to work, kind of thing. And so, the finger pointing up, you see the S behind there, the hand carrying the bucket, that's an O. So each hand had a letter behind him. The little boy had a letter A behind him. And so it spelled out, the whole concept of the mural, in a fun way, right? Obviously all the kids helped me paint it. They were there. We had about, it was like over 100 degrees when we painted this mural, and I still got about 20 kids out there to help out, which was really great. Here's some other shots of the wall. Let's see if I can see it. Here's like another, closer shot. Then there's like, I'll show you one more. Here's like, someone watering, right? So you can see the entire farm and garden just looks, it just got transformed really with this mural. And then that leads me to this picture, because they have a little free library there, of course. And so I dropped in one of our books, the Chef Roy Choi book, and I signed it, and I left it there. And so that leads me to, talking about the book. And I never thought I'd be illustrating a children's book like this. I always wanted to illustrate a book, but I never thought it would be about food necessarily. And so, for example, here's an image of the book where I have Chef Roy Choi mixing sauces, kind of like a DJ. And one of the things I really wanted to do was just, give it the same attitude and flavor that that a graffiti piece on the street has, but put it inside a children's book, right? So this is my favorite page in the spread in the book. It says Watts. The way I created these illustrations was I painted them on canvas on a large scale, and then we photographed them and used them at a smaller, obviously resized them. And then I illustrated with pencil and pen and everything. So like, for example, this page here, there's the background was painted with spray paint, and then the food and the everything else was drawn in and colorized on the computer. So if you look at this image for a second, and then I'll show you behind me, this is the actual canvas that I used for that page, right? So that was the way I was able to mix the different elements of graffiti and illustration and stuff like that. We were able to go up to Oakland and Berkeley for a few days a couple years ago before COVID. And I was able to work with different schools and create murals. And so this is a mural that we did up in, this is in, oh my God, I'm confusing my locations now. I think this is.
This is in Oakland.
This is in Oakland, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is in Oakland.
Yeah,
and most of these students didn't speak any English or very little English. And what united them was all this imagery. So I gave them all types of different stencils. So like, for example, you can see here some of the stencils that I gave them. And then I just said, go to town, and they went on the wall and did whatever they wanted to do. And at the end of the day, this was the final piece that we created, which says unity. And then above it, you could see it in all the different languages the kids speak. We put the word unity in all the different languages. So this was at Bret Hart. And it was a really, really great way to bring everything together with all the kids and the murals. And so anyways,
great.
That's
So
kind of my whole thing.
Great. So do you have a favorite food you like to share?
A favorite what?
Do you have a favorite food you like to share?
Oh, yeah, I do. Look. It's right here.
All right.
So I love tacos. That's an easy one.
Great.
But thank you.
Terrific. Well, thank you. And thank you for everyone for sharing all your wonderful work and your experiences. One quick question. I wonder, we don't have a lot of time left, but I just want to go around quickly and say, especially when you talk about food with kids, what are the common questions that you have that comes up? Or what do kids want to know? Or what do you feel like you introduce the kids through food? What are their reaction when you talk to them about food? Let's say, let's go back to Cassandra. Would you like to start? What's the family reaction to your programs?
I think they get curious about what things taste like, because I feel like a lot of kids learn from their parents. And if their parents don't like something, then they immediately don't like it without even tasting it. It's like this discriminatory against foods. So it's just trying to open them up to seeing what the actual flavors are. So I always get questions about what things taste like. And they always have trouble describing things. So if you give them an orange and, you want them to say what does the outside look like? Give me adjectives. They've always kind of struggled with, describing foods too.
So sometimes just having the vocabulary about food, it really helps about the very sensory experiences and so on. What about you, Krista? You talk to kids about food all the time too.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the ways that I love getting into food with kids is asking about the stories around their food and asking, like you did, what our favorite food is, or what is a food that's important to your family. And always prefacing that with don't yuck anybody else's yum. So that we can be open to the ideas of people like different things and to come at it with a really curious mind. And that ends up being a really great way to build connections within your classroom or your library or whatever group you're working with, that go far beyond just the food. But it's a really great entry point, I find.
Great, thank you. What about you, Craig?
Well, Krista, I do love that phrase. Don't yuck anybody else's yum. I was struck by the word like and how often we have to use it around food because we don't have a precise vocabulary. And kids will say, this is like that, and I like that. And there's so many ways to build out from that simple associating. I love when you introduce any kind of food because this food is like another. It's like at my house, it's similar. And I just love building out that vocabulary. And that's one of the reasons why I love having a rich library collection of books with varied vocabulary so that so much can enter their vocabulary, as well as like, which leads us wanting to connect, but not being sure what it is we actually agreed to.
June, what about how do kids react to when you share with them the kimchi and other things?
Well, I think what they love is that I don't talk about bad food, good food, or healthy food. Or I think they love the fact that when we talk about sonmat, handmade food, the range I get is anywhere from pizza, sandwich, all the way to tamales, and so much, right? Range. Even some people say ramen because they made it by hand, and so it's just whatever question arises is okay. And but what I love is when kids feel pride. Like I was sharing chocolates, and this one student said, "Oh, I'm from Tanzania," or "Oh, I make that with my dad or my mom." And so there's so much pride in the food, and it's great to say it all out in the open and share that pride of who they are.
Great. So before we get to Man One, because I'm just looking at our time, we're just about out, and I just want to make sure we don't get cut off. And so I want to make so Man One, you may have a short answer, but I also want to add that we just added a lot of links to our chat, and then also I will recap some of that at the Reader to Eaters Facebook page, so people can come as a recap, or I'll find some other way to provide all the resources to everyone. But you can certainly find eco-literacy, OCL libraries, programming, and so on. So, and when you get the last word.
I just want to say that, a lot of times when I'm working with kids, it always strikes me that a lot of them are sometimes afraid to talk about what kind of foods they like, because they think, they're socioeconomically, at a different stage than other kids. And so it's always interesting to hear these kids talk about the food and like, oh, I don't know if I should say I like beans or rice because, other people eat better food or whatever. And so it's really an interesting conversation that opens up these doors to talking to kids about, just their expression and their love. And then I relate it to art, and I tell them, it's like when people ask me what's my favorite color, it's the rainbow, because I need every color to create my art. So I think it's the same thing with food.
Great. Well, thank you. And I want to thank you, everyone. And in the case of Junjo and Man1, they'll be talking tomorrow again at a session about book creators, so you can hear more about their creative process. So please join them there. But again, I want to thank Cassandra and Krista and Craig for joining us for this great conversation. And we look forward to having more programming about food in the schools and public libraries. So thank you very much. And also, one last thing, I also like School Library Journal actually also had the cover story a couple of years ago about food literacy programming. So we included that link as well. So thank you all, and have a wonderful weekend.